Okay, so our next revision video is looking at Jesus' death / Holy Week. Now, the first thing could be asked here is, quite obviously, describe the events of Jesus' death. Now, there are so many things you can say here, but 4 sort of key points. Number 1, you can talk about how Jesus carried his own cross to Golgotha, the place of the skull, and was helped by Simon of Cyrene. Now, you can also then mention the fact that when Jesus arrived at Golgotha, he refused painkillers and was nailed to the cross with 2 others, and above him the sign that read, "The King of the Jews." Now, another thing to mention is that when he was on the cross, he called out, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," or my God, why have you forsaken me?" Now, when he did this, alright, he was insulted by chief priests and others, saying that he was calling for the help of Elijah, or calling for help. He's able to save others, but he can't save himself, so he was mocked at this time. Now, you then sort of finish by talking about the fact that darkness ensued, the fact that Jesus then died, and the curtain in the temple tore. Now, once again, there are other things you can mention, alright, but those are 4 key points. Now, next thing is why Jesus' death is important. Right, first of all, number 1, it shows God's / Jesus' love for us. I mean, God sent his only son to die so that we can be saved. Second point is the fact that it helps humans to accept and respect Jesus' teachings. The reason why this is that Jesus experienced the very worst of humanity. He died the most painful death. He refused painkillers. When he speaks about how we should treat others, how we should lead our lives, he is talking from a point of experience. The third thing, the reason I got 3 on here is that there are so many things you can say, but it's the fact that it allowed atonement to take place. Jesus' sacrifice was what was needed for us, for humanity to be able to gain salvation. When I mean gain salvation, that is short-term salvation. Alright, so their relationship with God could be repaired, but then also long-term salvation, where they can go to heaven. The way I like to think about it is that Jesus' death made a bridge between earth and heaven, that if we confess our sins and lead a good Christian life, we can cross. Now, we could be asked though why Jesus' death isn't important as, and I've put this on there crucially, as other events, because, duh, Jesus' death is important. Now, one thing you could mention is his birth. If he wasn't born, how could he die for us? And you say about his birth showing God's love, the fact that it shows God's power, that Jesus was born through the virgin birth, etc., etc. You should know that. Now, next one is resurrection being more important. Jesus defeating death, showing God's omnipotence, hope of an afterlife, etc., etc. That is the angle that I would go down. If you need to know any more information about those, go and have a look at the videos on Jesus' birth and Jesus' resurrection, as well as checking your revision guides. Now, we also then got to think about how we celebrate this in today's society. Well, we're looking at Holy Week. Now, every single one of you, listen up and listen good. Holy Week does not start on Ash Wednesday. Please stop confusing that. Holy Week begins on Palm Sunday. Now, there are a variety of things you can say about this, alright, but you can speak about the Mass, where the palms are waved, and there's a bit of it symbolises how Jesus was welcomed. Okay, well, he was welcomed the week before he was then put to death. Okay, now the next one, alright, is Maundy Thursday, the Thursday of that week. It links with Jesus' Last Supper. Well, it's celebrated today. We celebrate Maundy Thursday. One of the things that we do is that we attend Mass, where there are 12 parishioners who have their feet washed. But then also there is a prayer vigil, alright, where we remain with Jesus before Good Friday, which takes me on to my 3rd point. Good Friday. There are a variety of different practices that happens on Good Friday, but there's a 3 o'clock service. Many people fast, and I'll go into a bit more depth about this in a moment. And the final one, not to forget, is the Easter Vigil, or Easter Saturday. And this is where we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. And you speak about how this starts with a service of light, as well as some other practices that I'll also go into more depth, because not only could be asked to explain how Catholics celebrate Holy Week, but you could be asked about them individually. So, Maundy Thursday. Now, on Maundy Thursday, there is a Mass that is celebrated by the bishop, where the chrism oil that is going to be used throughout the sacrament, so that whole year is blessed. Okay, so that's the first thing. Also, then in Mass, you've got the priest washes the 12 parishioners' feet, and it remembers how Jesus gave us that example of serving others regardless of status. Next, obviously this happens in every Mass, but Holy Communion at this point is so vital. And the reason why it is that it remembers the first time that Jesus taught us the Mass, but also of what is going to happen tomorrow, the death of Jesus and his sacrifice. Finally, as I alluded to before, there is a prayer watch or prayer vigil at the end of the service where the Blessed Sacrament is put out and parishioners remain and pray and be there with Jesus, okay, before his death. And that moves us on to Good Friday. Now, how we celebrate Good Friday, one of the first things is that it's a day where people fast, okay? Now, once again, reason for this, is explain how, reason why they do this is that it's not a day of celebration, okay? At this time, it's a time of pain, suffering, and endurance, and just like Jesus had to endure far more than what we would have to do by fasting, we follow that pattern in our lives. The next one is there's a 3 o'clock service. It's a 3 o'clock service because transubstantiation does not take place, all right? And this is where we remember Jesus' death. There's also a practice where Catholics will go on procession around the local area. The reason for this is that Good Friday is one of the key days, Jesus' death, that we have a duty to spread this message across our local area. Finally, if we speak about the service itself, that the church is stripped bare and the priest wears black. There's no flowers, there is no celebration, it's a day of mourning. Now, if you remember this with Good Friday, all right, when you get on to how the Easter Vigil is celebrated, and that's something that you look at in the next revision video, then you can just remember to think of the opposite and you'll be able to get lots of the answers from it. Now, you could be asked, though, why Holy Week is important. It came up on last year's exam. Now, the reason why it's important is you've got a great amount of stuff you can talk about here. One of the things is when Jesus taught us the Mass. All right, Holy Week's important because Last Supper, transubstantiation allows us to be in the real presence of Jesus, etc., etc. The next one is that it's when Jesus died for us, and keep it in mind all those different ideas that we've already spoken about. It shows the omnibenevolence of God. It shows how atonement has been allowed to take place because of Jesus' sacrifice. Why Holy Week isn't important? Similar kind of ideas, once again, that we saw in Advent and Lent. That we can talk about how in Jesus' life there were far more significant events. But if you want the freedom to be able to explore this and look at other things of comparison, then you can see about how Holy Week isn't that important when you compare it to Jesus' birth or Jesus' baptism. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is because you've got quite a difficult argument to make here. Jesus' death and resurrection are two of our core beliefs in Catholicism. The next one is that there's a lack of evidence for Jesus' resurrection. Alright, so you can discuss that, you can bring that answer in. Now, in our next video, we're going to be focusing on Jesus' resurrection and Easter more explicitly.